So welcome everyone. My name is Dave Kirby. This is my co-host, Katie. I want to thank you for joining us today on a day in the life of a successful voiceover artist with Zach Hoffman. Hi Zach, thanks for joining us.
Hey, thanks. Good to be here.
So to get started, what we're going to do, we're going to talk to Zach a little bit about kind of what got him started into voiceover. But again, take some advantage of the Q&A panel, because we want to make sure that we get everybody's questions answered. I mean, this is for you guys. So if you have questions about Zach, maybe that we haven't covered, whether it be equipment or auditioning practices or anything, get them in there, and we'll do what we can do to get to the questions. If we don't get to everything by the end of the webinar, just again reach out to us, and we'll do what we can. So again, Zach, a little bit about. I mean, you've got quite the extensive resume. Why don't you tell us a little bit about your background in voiceover?
Sure. So I actually kind of grew up in a voiceover family. My father and my grandfather were both in the voiceover industry. My grandfather was a disc jockey and a producer, and I grew up in LA, where I kind of got a chance to study with some different people, had some decent training at a younger age. But, I kind of veered away from that for a while. I was really focused in kind of the music world. But really in the last kind of, I guess, few chapters of my life, voiceover has taken more of a center stage. And I just have found a real deep love for it. So, so I mean, it's always been a part of my life. Probably over the last, I guess, 9 or 10 years, it's been more a part of my life, and especially over the last probably 4 or 5 years.
So what did you do before you got into voiceover?
Well, I've done a little bit of everything. I think that a lot of artists watching can probably vibe with this, but I mean, I've done a lot of different things. I worked in the coffee industry for a long time alongside of pursuing everything. So, from Starbucks to getting really snobby, getting into third wave coffee, and kind of, I can talk for a long time about the beans and the grind and water proportions and proper extraction and blooming and proper roasting, and I'm really into that stuff. I also worked in the specialty world for a while, so I worked with cheese and charcuterie and beer, and I'm a big fan of kind of the finer things, I guess. I worked in a parking garage for a while. So, when you go into a parking garage and you click a button for a ticket, not one that you pay for, but you click a button for a ticket for some reason, and then you go park and you don't pay, but you got like the ticket. Have you ever done that before in a parking garage?
Oh yeah.
So for a while, for whatever reason, at a parking garage here in Nashville, they wanted a guy to stand there and click that button and hand that ticket to the person.
Wow.
And I did that. So I read a lot. That was a really good time for me to read when I was doing that. It was the weirdest job I've ever had. And then, man, I've done a bunch of odd jobs, just kind of all over the place. But I mean, my primary focus has been music, for a lot of years. So it was kind of whatever jobs could fill the gaps in my music life, until I really dove, headlong into VO.
So I guess to help with the transition, did you work with a coach at all to get started?
Yeah. Well, I mean, I've had a lot of different coaching and classes. My dad is a phenomenal voiceover artist. He was the voice of Nissan for a lot of years. He did many of the A&E biography. He's got an extensive resume that I could give you, but he really has coached me closely for a lot of years, and I always go to him. I had some other coaching out in LA. Kalmanson and Kamanson they're a voice casting agency in Burbank, and they're amazing, and they've given me a lot of my philosophy actually comes from them. And then I've had other, private kind of one-on-one workouts and things like that. So yeah, I think that a lot of it though, having a strong mentor who is experienced in the field is pretty crucial for sure, because there's a lot of nuance, obviously, to getting into this world, and figuring out those mechanics, I feel like, is what stops people from being able to be successful.
Now, so what are some of the key things then, as far as when you're learning from a from a pro or from a coach or a mentor? Like, what are some of the main things that they teach you that you would say are probably keys to having success that don't come naturally?
Sure. Yeah. I mean, first of all, I think when you're approaching anything, don't be afraid to suck. I mean, you don't know, and that's okay. Be okay with that, I think is a huge thing. There's actually people I could plug that preach that message, but to get in there and say, okay, I love this. I love the idea of this. And I want to do it. But I don't know what I'm doing. And I think that a few of the key things, if I were going to list some points that you probably immediately need to look at, are, can you read? Can you read well? How do you interpret script? I think that's huge. And I mean, some of those things you take for granted as a working voice actor because you're so used to kind of getting it there in front of you, but just the mechanics of doing it, it's not as simple as talking. People might tell you have a great voice all the time. That doesn't mean that you can do this, So having a great voice is such a small percentage. People who don't have great voices are awesome voice actors, So it is helpful to have a great voice, but so I think that, focusing on one of the things that I was told a lot is read everything all the time. If you see a billboard like, oh, the new Velocity, apartments in Nashville, and just come up with like a tagline. I do that all the time. I'll be in the car and I'm sitting there with my wife, and I'll just start saying something that's up on it. And I still do that. And so I think that finding things that you like, or maybe it's a product that you like, if you're into hiking, then there's some kind of gear at REI, or you want to do an REI commercial, or, if you're into Jaguars and you want to do the British thing, then you can get into it like a Jaguar commercial, that kind of thing. And so it's a matter of constantly reading, constantly figuring out how to naturally say something that's really unnatural to say. Because let's be real, the ad world, things that are compressed into an ad, like a 15 or 30-second ad, are unnatural. That's not the way we communicate. So figuring out how to say those things in a natural way is huge.
So, okay, so now talk about that as far as, with that background and that education, that help that you've gotten. How much of a role has that played in your success to this point?
Sorry, which part? How?
Just I guess what? Just the background.
The background part.
Yeah,
sure. That's kind of hard to say because I think it's just integral. I think that it's an innate part of who I am. So I wouldn't be me if I didn't have that, obviously. And so that being said, I think a person's experience who's worked at Kroger for 20 years, or wherever you are in the world, maybe what's a famous grocery store up there where you guys are?
Essentially, I guess we got Loblaws is probably the
Loblaws. Yeah,
ones.
I actually just did an audition for Loblaws. That's hilarious. Have you guys seen Arrested Development? Loblaws Loblog. Have you seen that? It's hilarious. Anyway, you should watch it. It's really fun. That's all I could think about when I was auditioning. Anyway, so like a Loblaws or Kroger or Anderson's or Smith's out in Vaughn's out west. Somebody who's worked at a grocery store for 20 years, maybe that's the experience that got them to where they're at. So no, I don't think that doing it exactly the way that I did it, or getting to the point where you're able to, interpret or read script exactly the way I did it is the way. I don't think that. I think that who you are is what we're trying to get at in the voiceover world. Who are you really? Who like if that's coming out, every experience that you've had up to this point in your life coming out in the script and letting that inform how you're reading, that's what people are looking for. It doesn't have to be the coaching thing in a glamorous place in Beverly Hills. Like, screw that, man. Like, we want real. We want somebody who's in the trenches in Louisiana, or somebody who's deep in the Midwest somewhere in Nowhereville. Like, those are the characters that I think casters want, so.
Awesome. So looking at your background there, you do have a lot of big names under your belt, companies like Dr. Pepper, ESPN, Country Music Hall of Fame, Zac Brown Band. What would you say the best job you've ever booked outside of voices.com would be?
Best job, might be different than like, so probably I would have to say it's actually a little bit more obscure. It's an ongoing client that I have for the University of West Georgia. I'm the voice of the University of West Georgia. I have been for 8 or 9 years now, something like that. And they have been amazing to me. They've been an ongoing client, and every year I have a few campaigns with them. And so as far as amount of time and amount of money that's paid, those are the kinds of clients that I want. Now, I've also done those more glamorous things, but I mean, they might be a couple of jobs, you know what I mean? And then you've got some new young CEO or some new person in the department. I mean, it's an ever-changing industry, and it's always like, oh, I'm going to find a different voice. I'm just a color on a palette, man. Like, I'm just talent, yeah, at the end of the day. So, you know, being okay and comfortable with loss is a big part of, of the arts industry. So yeah, that probably, though, more recently, Logan's Roadhouse is probably the biggest and one of the more lucrative things that I've done recently. And that was great. Those guys were awesome to work with and really cool sessions. It was great vibes. Loved it.
Awesome. Do you remember the first job you booked with voices.com and what that was?
Yeah, I think it was actually Velo, which is at East West Bank. So it was a bank, and it was actually an internal thing for them, I think. And I ended up working with those guys, and it ended up being multiple jobs that they kept tacking onto it. It was actually really cool, and I booked it really fast. I mean, it was like, a few days into me. I mean, I hustled though. I mean, I'm a hustler, so I'm auditioning a lot. So, but I booked it pretty quick. It was awesome. I was like, whoa, okay, work right away. Love it.
Perfect. And do you have a favorite job that you've ever booked with us here?
Actually, yeah. My favorite job that I've booked with voices was one of my first video games, which is one of the reasons why I'm in the industry. I want to do video games. I want to do characters. I want to do animation. I mean, I think every voiceover artist probably wants to do that, but it's actually a video game that's been getting a ton of success lately. It's newer though. It's called Five Nights at Freddy's, and it's by Scott Cawthon, I think is how you say his name. And he directly, was looking for voice talent on there. He hired me. I'm like the main antagonist in the game. Nightmare Fredbear is my character. And I got to he was just scare me on the audition. That's what he said in the spec. And so I got crazy. I did all these layers and used a bunch of my kind of acumen and Pro Tools, and it was a lot of fun. And I booked the gig. It was for actually just some other auxiliary character in the game. And he was like, I'm actually going to cast you as the main guy. And I was like, yes. And I got there's a huge fan base for this game. It's nuts. I've had so many people find me on Instagram and put I had a ton of hits on my demos right after I booked that. I was like, what in the world? This is a huge game right now. I've never heard of it. And he was awesome to work with though. And so that probably is my favorite one that I've done. And it wasn't a super high paying one or anything, but it was just cool. I liked it. It was a good job.
Awesome. We do have some questions that are starting to come in, and I don't like to wait too long before we start getting to them, just because then they start to build up, and then you want to be able to answer some questions at the same time, still not lose sight of the path that we'd like to take this. Diana's got a couple. Sorry.
Yeah, I actually am seeing them come. I'm sorry to cut you off. There's one that I really wanted to answer just real quick, if that's
Absolutely.
okay.
Yeah, for sure.
Somebody said a little bit ago, I can't get back to it again, but oh yeah, here it is. Diana, she said, is age a hindrance? Is that what you were going to ask?
That's exactly what I was going to ask.
Dude, what a great question. And thank you for asking that, Diana. Age is not a hindrance. And in fact, sometimes age is a good thing, because you're seasoned in life and you can make mistakes early on in your voice career that can ruin your career. So you got to be careful early on. And I think sometimes even I'm always thinking man, am I making missteps now? And so that being one thing. And then the other thing is, a lot of times with age comes a cooler quality of voice, And so one of the great things about acting and voice acting and acting in general is age has never been a hindrance. Go look at, people who got a late start in life. I read those articles all the time. I'm 29. I have 3 children and I'm married, and I'm loving just my life as kind of a married guy with kids. And You know, the arts are difficult to navigate as a married guy with kids. Seriously, most of the guys out there who are doing a lot are single. And so it's really, it's kind of tough to compete with that, but it gives me a different kind of drive and a different kind of edge. So I'd say no, I'd say sometimes age can actually be a benefit rather than a hindrance.
So how do you do that then? I mean, because you touched on a really good point that depending on what you got going on in your life, it can be difficult to be able to make this work. And how do you find the ability to do that?
Backbone. It's terrifying. I mean, it's not like I've got it completely figured out. It's, I guess I know I've done a lot of kind of soul searching. There have been layers peeling back over the last few years of my life, and that could get really gushy and serious. But one of the things is just knowing what I want to do and just saying, that's what I'm going to do, man. Why would I waste my time and waste my life on things that I don't want to do? I'm not going to do that. I'm going to focus, and I'm going to not care about the people who want to ridicule me or laugh at me or say, oh, get a real job or whatever. Man, this is it, man. We're the music makers. We're the dreamers of dreams. Willy Wonka. And that's who I want to be. And so I'm going to do that one way or another. If it's scrappy and doing, I'm sure we'll talk more about this, but if it's scrappy and doing pay to plays like this, I'm going to do it. I don't care if I got to go, whatever I have to do the thing that I want to do, barring ethical, obviously, I'm going to do it, and I'm not going to make apology for it. So finding ways to, I think the big thing that's going to come up in people's minds when they hear that is, okay, but I have to make a living, right? And yeah, you do. You have to. I do other things. Anything that I can do to make a buck. If I've got side hustles that I do, anything that I can do while I'm doing this, I'm going to do it. But I've got multiple streams that I'm getting from voiceover, and I'm just going to do all of that to the best of my ability and just dive in and not make apology for it,
Really good question here, and my screen keeps shifting, so I hope I don't lose my spot here. But another company that I've looked at wants me to do an audition and an evaluation before committing a lot of money. Why are you positive that everyone has the potential to be successful in voiceover? What do you do if the client just doesn't have it? Do you want to take a stab at that first, and then give our side of things?
Quick, one more time. Another company that I've looked at wants to do an audition and evaluation before committing a lot of money. Why are you positive that everyone has the potential to be successful in voiceover? What do you do if the client just doesn't have it? What do you do if the client just doesn't? So I guess I'm a little confused by the question.
I think that they're referring to the talent in the
talent.
In
Okay, yeah.
Instance,
so, one, I would say, I'm not positive that everyone can be successful at voiceover. That statement, I think, should be qualified. I'm personally not. I don't think that. I think that anyone can do voiceover, but not everyone will do voiceover. Does that make sense?
Absolutely.
In other words, I think that voice talent can come from anywhere. I don't think that it's limited to your age or gender, whatever. We could get into all that. I don't think it's limited to anything. I think that anybody can be a rock star in the voiceover world. Do I think that everybody can? No, of course not. Just like I don't think everybody can be an amazing chef, or just like I don't think everybody can be Bono. I mean, there's only there are certain skill sets that I think that you should possess. But I mean, if it's what you want, there's a reason why you want it, and you probably do have some of the goods if it's something that you want. Wanting something and letting that drive what you're doing, you're going to probably achieve something there. If you want to do voiceover, you probably have some chops. You probably have something within you that's causing you to want that. So a lot of people who I don't think can do it, they probably don't want it. They're probably not watching this,
You know what? That's really well put. And that's essentially, the way we try to position it to people is when they come to us starting out saying, is this something I can do? Years ago, because I spent 20 years in radio, and I didn't pursue an active career in voiceover outside of that because I thought, you know what, I don't have, you know, the Don LaFontaine, you know, movie trailer voice of God delivery. So I thought, okay, it's not something that's in my wheelhouse. And then you start to realize what all is out there, and there's essentially a niche for every type of voice. So it's not so much that you've got the voice or you don't have the voice. It's like you said, do you have the drive? Are you willing to put in what it takes to learn how to make what you've got? Are you able to parlay that into a career? Learning audio quality, learning techniques, doing regular auditioning. And yeah, I think most people do have it if that's what they want to do.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I think that, yeah. If it's what you want and you're willing to put in the time, you're willing to put in the work, you're willing, like I said at the beginning, you're willing to suck, to say, man, I don't know. And then you just start doing the research, you get coaching. It's not going to be handed to you, man. Like, this isn't an overnight success scam. That's not what this is. It's like, hey, here's a way to hustle. If you're interested and you want to grind this way, let's roll, you know. But if not, then there are other ways to grind. You can go grind it out at McDonald's and become a regional manager. You know, you can do that too. There's lots of different grind. It's all the same thing, man. I mean, it's just business. You want to grind in one avenue or another avenue?
Well, and what's the expression? It's something. If you really want to do something, you'll find a way. If you really don't, you'll find an excuse.
Yep. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. Yeah. So I want to talk a little bit more about how you got started with us here, Zach. Okay. You've been with us since about May of this year. Yeah. What made you want to take the next step and get the upgrade so that you could start auditioning?
Sure. So right before, so I also do, like I said, I do a lot of other grinds, and some of the other stuff that I was doing was kind of sucking me in. And I was not liking that at all. And I was thinking, okay, I've got to find other ways to grind. To be honest with you, P2P, pay to play, whatever, that whole model is really new to me. So I don't this is all super new. Voices.com is super new to me. I've obviously done a little bit of research. I know of other ones as well. It's difficult to know, okay, like, what am I doing? Why am I doing it? And to be honest with you, I probably could have done even more research than I did. But I read a couple of articles that you guys released, actually, and they were just really solid. And I was like, hey, this is legit. I mean, these things are helpful. And actually, my wife was doing some research, and I think she's the one who actually found voices.com. And I talked to, I can't remember the name now. David, do you ever talk to people when they're starting out? It could have been you. I want to say the person's name was David that I talked to when I first started. It
may very well have been.
It was like a year ago. I know you talked to a lot of people. I can't remember who it was, but I talked to like a year before I signed up, and I just didn't do it because, you know, there's controversy about pay to plays in the industry right now. It's like, well, should I do this? And it's like, I still don't really have those answers, other than I got to take care of my family. I want to hustle in this world, right? So, what the thing that kind of pushed me over the edge was, okay, it seemed like, just in a lot of reading that I'm doing, in any industry, things are just changing right now in the world. The .com era has completely, I mean, as a musician, going from people going into the store and buying records to Spotify. That's a huge difference, right? And people hated Spotify at first. And now artists are making money on Spotify because of playlists. And now, instead of millions, we're talking billions. I mean, it's way more exposure, right? So in my line of thinking, this was my logic, and I didn't read this. This is just me. I'm thinking, okay, the voiceover world is also changing dramatically. The way that clients are interacting with talent, the way that talent is getting hired, it's in a pretty major metamorphosis. And some of the old ways of doing things, it's flying in the face of that, and it feels really negative. But that's happening across the board in every industry. And so am I going to roll with the punches and grow with the industry and be a new guy who is actually kind of on the cusp of change and therefore successful in kind of the next chapter of what's happening in the VO world? Or am I going to be the guy who starts to fail because I'm complaining about how things used to be? And I mean, that's, I think, kind of what my thinking was when I first was like, okay, now I'm not saying, and you guys have been really good to me so far. I'm not necessarily saying voices.com is the end all be all done. That is the new cause, but I do think that you guys are onto something. And I mean, you guys did come from the old world with, help me out. What is it? I can't remember the name of it now, but you guys did come from that, and now you're where you are. And so I think that I mean, I'm getting work, you know what I mean? So it's just a thing where I'm like, okay, now here's a new way for me to grind.
Well, absolutely. And it's, I'm glad you put it that way, because I mean, there is obviously, within the industry, you get some of the old school, types that they don't like the online platform idea, because it's you're right, it's different, it's very progressive, and like you said, you need to be able to move forward with change. I mean, technology, whatever the industry is, technology changes the landscape of each industry, and to be successful, you need to roll with it. And to touch on something else that you mentioned, and it came up in one of the questions: does location matter? No, that's the beauty of the online platform, and this is why it's so successful for voiceover talents and clients alike, because it just gives everybody a bigger pool to play in. There's more job opportunities because it doesn't matter where you are, it's all done online, and there's more talent to choose from as a client because, again, it's all done online. So geography really doesn't matter, but the exception of maybe the odd time zone issue.
Yeah, sure.
So when you, I guess when you came with us, what was it like when you first started, auditioning and using the platform? How was it a comfortable transition for you, or how did you find that?
Yeah, totally. It was actually really, really easy. I think that once I finally decided to sign up, I did, and I think there were 50 new auditions in my box immediately, and I was like, yes. And I just literally that day I was like, boom, I think I did all of them. Oh wait, you know what? I think it was like 100 that came. There was a lot. It was crazy. And I knocked them out in a few days. I think I did in the first week and a half. I think I did 200 auditions. I just kept going, man. Nice. And I booked off of that. I booked a few jobs off that.
Wow.
So yeah, the transition was real smooth for me. It was great for me.
Awesome. So when you did get started as well, did you have a mentor to kind of help you navigate, or did you use a lot of our resources that we have in our resource library?
I asked a bunch of questions with the person that I initially signed up with, and it honestly there wasn't too much that was confusing to me. So it was like, here's your auditions, here's how you respond to them. You can put a template here for a message, and voila. And then I just started rolling,
Yeah. What was it like when you first started auditioning?
Like I said, it was great. There were a lot there, and I was just happy to have that many auditions. I was like, wow, this is great. There's a lot here. And that's the biggest thing that I can say that has been awesome for me, is it's like, okay, here's a way to grind. I need to find the grind. Like where can I put my nose down and just start grinding and start working? And it gave me that opportunity.
For sure. So in the 4 months that you've been with us, you already have 7 5-star reviews, which is awesome. Did you find it hard to book a job when you first got started because you didn't have any reviews?
I think the reviews definitely help. I think that when I got the 5 stars by my name, that seemed to improve things, but I didn't know any different when I started. So I didn't actually know about that when I first started. I just kind of started going, and then I got my first review, and I was like, oh, cool, I get reviews on here. Oh, wow, there's 5 stars by my name now. That's interesting. And then that seemed to kind of help, like, it's like a snowball, you start it, and then just the more that you kind of move, and you start accumulating things that help the whole program work.
Awesome. Is there anything that you know now that you wish you knew when you first got started?
Anything I know now that I guess when I first started, I didn't know the voice match deal, where you're going to have a higher match score, which I guess looks good to clients. And it seems like it scores you certain auditions, maybe like it seems to help the whole thing if your voice matches up. And that all depends on the descriptives that you choose for your demos, right? And a few other things. So just understanding that and understanding that I needed to maybe have a wide variety of those descriptors, like to try to have all of those represented, seemed to be one of the pieces of information that I probably would have wanted to understand a little more fully when I first started.
Now, when we're getting a lot of questions, especially that regards to equipment, so we should probably touch on that.
Okay.
Looking at your home studio right now, I think from what I can see right now, is that a Neumann mic?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. This is a TLM 102.
Is that what you started with?
Actually, yeah. So I'm kind of a mic guy.
Go big or go home.
I love Neumann. Yeah, I'm a big Neumann fan. I love the TLM 103. Obviously, was what I wanted, but the 102 is more affordable. I think, man, investing in a great mic is. I'm gonna say, get a decent but get a dope mic. Like that's me, and then upgrade everything else as you go. But my goal mic is I want to get a vintage U87. I love the actual U87s. I've used that for vocal recordings, for music, and I just love the way my voice sounds on that particular. And I do think that depending on your voice, there are different mics. Some people sound great on an RE20. I'm not. I put RE20 on my kick drum. I'm not going to put that on my vocals. I think I sound terrible in them. It's just the classic broadcast mic. A lot of people like that. Not a huge fan for vocals. And then the other one would be a Sennheiser shotgun. I love those shotgun mics. In fact, for out here, it would be better to have one of those. But I just pulled my mic out of my booth so that I could do this and kind of be on the webinar.
So for somebody starting out, then what would you recommend as far as, because I think it's a very valid point that not every mic is going to be right for you. How does somebody go about figuring that out?
Yeah. If you've got anybody, asking questions, doing research, obviously is primary. I think that getting a decent condenser and use your ears. You know what I mean? If like I said, I kind of play in the Neumann world, and so I think you can get one of these. You might be able to find a sale and get a deal for like $650 or $700. That's probably the range that you're going to be looking at for a mic like this. If you want to get kind of to the next level, you're going to be looking easily at $2,000 or $2,500, and that is obviously untouchable for a lot of people starting out. But there are mics that you can get. I mean, I've known people who've used like 57s for auditioning at first, which sure SM57s. Go look that up if you don't know what it is. But they don't sound terrible. I've been surprised sometimes when I've heard that, and those are super accessible. That's like $90. You can grab one of those. I wouldn't start with that personally, but I mean, if you got to start wherever you got to start, you know what I mean? So if you want to get something like that, you can do it. There's a company called MXL. MXL makes a microphone that it kind of looks like this. It's a little bit bigger. It looks like the 103. I can't remember the model number of it, but those sound great. And they're in I want to say they're in the mid hundreds or 200 level, which is super accessible. And I had one, it's dented now. I don't know where it is, but, I used it a lot for different stuff, for just recording and capturing different musical things that I do. And I was surprised at how good those things can sound. So there's a lot of good stuff out there, man. Everyone's trying to get in it. In the mic game, it's like, you can find something that's mimicking the big expensive ones, and it actually sounds awesome. And especially for starting out and auditioning, you're going to be way ahead of the game with any of that stuff.
Absolutely. I mean, obviously go with what's within your budget.
Yeah.
But yeah, do try to get the best mic you can. You can get some entry-level mics that, that will work for you to get certain jobs. And then you just, as you start getting the jobs in and start making some money, then yeah, upgrade to, to one of the more high-priced ones. How about software? What are you using now?
So I'm a Pro Tools guy. I've been on Pro Tools for a long time. You can get all kinds of different packages on Pro Tools. Pro Tools Express, I think, is what I started out with. And it was great. I just wanted it because it's the industry standard. I mean, when you're capturing live sound, Pro Tools is typically what's used, but I also have Logic. And Logic is really accessible, $200 and you can get Logic, and it's awesome. There obviously are a lot of different DAWs that people use. Starts with an A?
The Audacity.
Audacity, yeah. It seems like a lot of people are using Audacity right now. I've actually never used Audacity, but a lot of people seem to be using that for auditioning. Like I said, I've just always been a Pro Tools guy. I'm very comfortable in Pro Tools. I started out in Sony SoundForge. I don't know if you guys have used that, but way back in the day, I was using Sony SoundForge, and I was real comfortable with that. And it was weird to transition to Pro Tools, but because it's the standard, I wanted to use that.
Now, I'm guessing that's your studio that you're sitting in right now.
Yes.
So I'm just kind of looking to see how you've got it treated. How have you done that as far as like for the acoustics?
Sure. So out here, it's really not treated well. I wish that I could pick up my desktop and just turn it, but there's a closet here. It's real small, and it is. It's got blankets and all kinds of stuff hung up in there. I have some RLX. RLX is very expensive. I haven't invested in a bunch of it, so I need to do that and actually put that everywhere. But I've got like anything from blankets. There's like this wool blanket. I've got things nailed up. I've got this like egg crate mat thing that you would put on the ground, and I actually have that nailed up onto the ceiling of it, and I have a curve in it. I mean, really the whole deal with sound is you want unparalleled walls and surfaces. They need to not be parallel, and any corner, like you could probably hear some echoing in where I'm talking right now, and it's because the corners in this room out here are not treated at all. So, that you don't want that. You need to get your corners really nice and deadened, especially if you're in a room that's just all flat. There's no crown molding, nothing like that. You're going to get a lot of, you got to get a deadened space.
So further to that, then, your suggestions for somebody who's new, that's creating their own sound booth.
Yeah. So if you've got a closet, use your closet. If you have a walk-in closet where like your clothes are hanging up, that's great. Use your walk-in closet. It's already naturally going to be pretty well deadened. Hopefully it's carpeted. If it's not, get a rug. Get creative. Grab old blankets and old pillows and just put them up. Like seriously, all you got to do is play with it until you're not hearing some weird, echoing going on. So it's actually more self-explanatory than you think, even though there is a science behind it. It's pretty like straightforward. And so I've actually done things where I've literally just taken a blanket and held it over my head and put it on every side of the mic and behind me and just held it up while I've done a couple auditions when I was like moving or something and I needed to bang something out. I've done that before, and it's really hilarious. I've actually held my Neumann and so I mean, like, you just need to get the space deadened, especially for auditions. Like, it doesn't have to be insane. Live sessions, you want it to be as pro as possible. So definitely when you're auditioning, you do want to be ready to take a live session. If you've got, and I'm sure we'll talk about this, but if you've got like Source Connect or you have an ISDN access, then you're probably gonna want to make sure you definitely need to make sure that you sound pro, or else you're not going to get hired again. So I do have access to different studios in the area. My dad owns a whisper room, which is another piece of gear you can buy if you ever want to. He's got a pretty nice whisper room, which basically is just a box with a bunch of RLX all around it. So
awesome. So I wanted to chat to you a little bit about your demos. You've got a little bit of everything on your profile there, Zach. You've got TV, narration, corporate, e-learning. So it's quite impressive, actually. How many demos do you have in total? Do you know?
Jeez, a lot. I don't know how many. Definitely, probably more than 30.
Okay.
As far as like reels, I probably have like 10.
Perfect. And how many did you start out with?
started out with one. I just had my commercial reel, and that was kind of what I started booking work on.
Awesome. Do you have a strategy for your demos at all?
Oh yeah. I mean, so that's a whole topic. I mean, demos are, that's your business card. You know what I mean? People are going to go listen to your demo, and within the first few seconds, they're going to decide whether you're a pro or not. It's pretty quick. You know, they're going to listen to it. You don't want to put a junky demo out. I think demos require coaching. I think that you ought to probably consider hiring out a studio or somebody who's got full pro setup to really get it done right and mixed right. It's something you don't want to halfway do. You don't want to do it halfway. You want it to be as pro as possible. You want it to be mixed and mastered. You want to be careful with like song selection and if you want beds underneath your spots, and if it's finished work, hopefully you haven't finished work that you can use, but a lot of times starting out you won't. So
yeah, I was just going to ask that actually. After you finish a job, do you usually get the client's permission to then post that on your profile as a demo as well?
Yeah. So you just, once you've done a job, usually clients don't care at all about you posting it. Sometimes you might need to wait a little bit. They'll tell you, just to, like for a game or something, you want them to be able to release that before you release, release that as an example of your work. So you do want to be careful with timing on that. But yeah, their clients are real easy to work with on stuff like that. I've never had somebody say, no, don't use that on your demo. So yeah, I would definitely do that.
Now, getting kind of along the idea of what type of demos to use, one question I wanted to get to a little earlier from Richard, is the best demo recording energetic, solemn, historical, or is there one that's better than the others?
It depends on the job and the client. No, you want a variety. So you can have a demo that's solemn, and that's that demo. You can have a demo that's energetic, or you can have a reel that's a variation of all of those things, and you have an example. And so general rule of thumb, this is what I would say. Right now, 60-second demos are kind of the thing. You want hard out at 60 seconds. So 1 minute, right? I do have a few demos that are more than 1 minute, but that's like the old way. 60 seconds is the new fresh thing. Put 6 or 7 spots on there, maybe 8 or 9 even if you can fit them in there. Real quick, if you go listen to my commercial demo, you'll hear that. I think I've got probably 8 spots on there, and I try to get the best like section that represents my voice and the product that I'm pitching on there, and they're pretty quick. And then you get those mixed well, and you think through like up, down, And so I'd say variation for a reel. The cool thing about voices is that they do have, it seems to work well when you have like a spot that's like, I have one that's like ominous, deep, gritty. And then I've got like, my UK demos and specific different reads within that. So it just depends on what you're trying to do. I think with voices.com, if you're asking specifically on voices.com, what should my strategy be with my demos? You want a lot, and you want variations, and you want each of them to be one thing, and then maybe put some reels at the top. That seems to be the best way to do it, because a client's going to go through and they'll be like, oh, I want a cartoonish dimwit kid. I've got one on there that says that. And so boom, there you go. Now they can just listen to just that and not have to listen to a whole reel to try to find what they want. So it's all about making it easy for the client, I think.
These are all great questions, and I want to keep with them because, again, this is all for you guys. We're going to do our best to chip away at these. Like I said, if we don't get to your question, please don't hesitate to email us directly, your account manager, and we'll do what we can because we want to make sure that you're going into this with all questions answered. One of the questions that came up earlier, can you speak to the business side of voiceover? Like, how do you market yourself other than just through the demos and the auditions?
So yeah, how do I market myself? Website. I've got a website that I use. I do have a little bit up through just my personal Facebook and Instagram. So socials, to have something there. I mean, guys, marketing is, it's anyone's game right now. Okay. Like the way that, go I don't know if anybody's on any of the kind of entrepreneurial guys, man, but I'm a huge Gary Vaynerchuk fan. I'm literally probably every morning watching one of his videos, or Andy Frisella or Ty Lopez, even personal branding. These are huge questions that really, honestly, it's anybody's game. Get out there. Your biggest problem is no one knows you. That's your biggest problem. So people need to know your name. How do they know your name? Nobody knows, man. Like, get out there and get your crap out there and get your name known. And so that's definitely kind of where I'm at right now. I'm actually trying to figure that out. So the more that I can get out there, the more that I can get known is kind of the goal. So if it's good on LinkedIn for you, get on LinkedIn. If you're still somehow making MySpace work for you, then it's really, there's no wrong answer. If you achieve success in any of those things, everyone's going to be asking you how you're doing it. That's what's going to happen. And
you hit the nail right on the head. Like, nobody knows who you are. You need to get your name out there. You need to get your voice out there.
Yeah.
And this is one of the things that when somebody comes to us new, whether they're new to voiceover or just new to the site, one of the biggest benefits you have here is the number of clients that hire talent from this site. We're over 200,000 clients. These are the guys you want to make connections with. These are the guys that are hiring people for voiceover projects. So get on there, do as many auditions as you can. Because if you do 20, 30 auditions a day, by the end of the year, you've made connections with thousands of people who hire voiceover regularly.
Yeah.
And so when you audition, don't look at it just as a job that you're looking to make $300 with. Look at it as, here's a connection that you're going to help build a career with. So, and I think that kind of goes such a long way as far when you talk about marketing yourself. Like you said, it's getting your name, getting your voice out there.
Yeah, absolutely.
When you started, you said that you did a ton of auditions right out of the gate. Are you still keeping up with that pace?
Oh yeah. I typically am anywhere. It just depends on how busy the day is and if I'm doing a lot of actual, jobs. But I mean, I'm trying to clear my box every day. I call it my box. I don't know if you guys call it that, but I try to clear my box every day. So that could be 40 auditions. I'd like to get 40 auditions out in a day. And I think this question is coming, but I found that I've got to do about 42, 43 auditions to book a job. So if I'm doing that every day, that potentially could mean a job per day, or at least it evening out to that, which is what I'd like to do. I'd like to score one job per day.
And as daunting as that sounds, doing 40 auditions in a day, how long does that really take you?
It does depend on sometimes it might be like, hey, we've got a section of an audiobook and we want to have as much as you can read. I've had that happen and it took me hours. But most of the time I'm knocking them out pretty fast. I get in there, I have my laptop open in my booth. I've got a solid state hard drive in there so it doesn't make any noise. And then I'll just kind of go down the list and read through the auditions, come out here, edit and send as I go. And usually while I'm doing that, it seems like more auditions are coming in, and then I'll just get back up and kind of rinse and repeat, and just, you get in a groove, you figure it out and just keep kind of roll with it.
Are you doing a lot of editing on your auditions before you send them in?
Oh yeah, definitely. Yeah. I want to stand out. I want people to be like, whoa, who's this guy? So I definitely, I mean, I get all my clicks and blips out of it. I get a deep breath. And I actually do some mixing and mastering on it as well, because I want it to sound way quality, and I want people to go, okay, this guy's serious. People make judgments immediately, even if they don't say they do. As soon as they hear you, they're thinking, oh, this is crappy quality. I don't like his voice, and they just don't like the quality of the audition. You know what I mean? So,
how much of a script do you read when you audition?
Usually the best part. So I'll just I might read the whole thing, and then I come out and while I'm editing, I'm like, okay, this is the section I'm gonna send. I used to only, like when I first started, I was only doing like, I'd pick a sentence and just focus in on that, unless the whole audition is one sentence, which happens sometimes. But lately I've been doing the whole thing because I've found that it gets me in the groove, one, and then two, a lot of times like a client will love what I did, and I want to go back and get that whole thing for them. Like they'll want to hear more. Sometimes that happens. Hey, Zach, loved your audition. Is there any way you can read the whole sample script for us? And just, I want to hear the whole thing. And I'm like, okay. And then if I didn't record the whole thing, then I got to go and get my mindset and try to figure out where I was at in my head when I did that, So lately I've been recording the whole sample script, which isn't very long. It's usually pretty short. And then I'll just send the best part of that.
Well, and the beauty too of doing a short script is, it's obviously the more you read, the more you're editing. So if you keep it short, fewer edits means ultimately
Quicker.
more auditions that you can put in through a day.
Exactly.
So when you decide to you're starting the day, you're sitting down to do some auditions, what's your strategy, or is there one?
Do as many as I possibly can. Yeah, I mean, mindset is huge. I think that everybody's a little different, and it depends on, okay, what's going to motivate me for the, man, if I don't feel well, if I'm eating like crap, if I didn't sleep well, like I'm not going to audition well. So it's like anything else. I mean, if you go into a job and you haven't been taking care of yourself, then, so yeah, I think that eating, drinking a lot of water, staying really, really hydrated, taking a break in the middle of the day and kind of, shaking it off, going to work out or going to cut the grass or something, that actually can be really, really helpful. A lot of times with creatives, when we've got to make that paycheck, I've got to win the bread. You're trying to force yourself to be creative, and creativity doesn't come from that. It comes from like freeness. I'm going to get real weird on you now. But seriously, you want to almost like let it go and kind of like just take a nap, but, and sometimes your best work, actually always your best work comes from that kind of mindset, I think. So my strategy is get myself in the right mindset. I start early. I get up at 6:30 in the morning. Typically I try to get up earlier than that, but usually it ends up being 6:30. I usually get a start at around 7 or 7:30 and I just roll. I'll go all day if I have to.
Awesome. So being a singer and a voice actor as well, Zach, do you have any vocal exercises that you'd recommend?
It's funny. In voiceover, so one of my favorite voiceovers, and I wouldn't call him a voice actor necessarily because he doesn't do a ton of it, but one of my favorite voices is Tom Waits. Tom Waits, he smokes a lot of cigarettes and drinks a lot of coffee, and what's he building in there? What the hell is he building in there? So that guy wrecks his voice, wrecks it all the time. And that's kind of what gives it the gravitas that it has. So with voiceover, yes, they're definitely, you need to take care of your voice. Don't hear me say you need to wreck your voice. Don't do that. But Tom Waits can only do Tom Waits. We're not all going to be Tom Waits, but, for VO, I've found that sometimes this is going to sound so contrary. I'm sorry, but for VO, sometimes I won't talk in the morning at all purposefully because I want to get a really raw sound. And I do I eat a lot of fat in my diet, good fats like omega-3s, avocados and grass-fed butter and those kinds of things. And that actually does a lot for my voice, so I'll go drink like coffee with butter in it or have a broth even sometimes in the morning, but that has a lot of fat in it. And for some reason, man, that's just like, you should go listen to my UK narration demo and you'll hear what I'm talking about. It just resonates. And I'm just like, oh, I love that. I wish my voice was always like that. And the more I warm up my voice, the higher pitch it becomes because it's warm and it's ready and it's going. And that's great for energetic reads and it's great for conversational reads. And so I'll use that a lot. But my personal favorite place where my voice is, even for those things, if it's natural, I want it to kind of be down. So I take care of it by way of not wearing it out. I'm not going to go crazy on it. Now, singing, totally different. Singing, yeah, I've got warm-ups that I do, because I need it, because pitch is so important, obviously. So that's a whole different world. But it's funny with VO, sometimes, don't tell my wife, but sometimes I'll smoke a cigarette before an audition because I want that quality, or I'll drink some whiskey or something, I'll drink my rye and just get it just helps for some reason.
We won't tell her, but if she's watching the
Thanks.
webinar, there's not a whole lot we can
No,
do.
I'm holding you responsible.
Zach, you know what? I mean, it's been an absolute pleasure speaking with you today. I wish we could go on for another hour. I mean,
Probably.
you clearly, you've got so much great information. You're very inspirational. And I hope everybody took something away from this. Again, I apologize for questions we didn't get to, but please don't be shy to email us, and we can try to help you through that. In fact, don't ever be shy about reaching out to your account manager. You never know. There could be a promotional offer on a membership upgrade that's available to you that isn't on the site that you can ask us about. That being said, you know what? It's like I said, it's been a blast, and we want to really thank you for doing this for us today, Zach.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for having me. I'm happy to be here.